Welcome to the Love of the Star podcast. I'm Bobby Belt, Dallas Cowboys insider for 105 through the Fan in Dallas, joined as always by former Super Bowl winning NFL scout Brian Broaddus. He is now the co-host of the G-Bag Nation, 2 to 7 p.m. Central, Monday through Friday on 105 through the Fan in Dallas. He is also the pre- and post-game co-host on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. And boy, we are here to review the ass-kicking Brian Broaddus that we both kind of suspected it would be. This is a dominant 49-17 victory for the Cowboys. Probably not even that close in reality. This is a game where it felt like if Dallas wanted to just keep on the gas all four quarters, and if Dallas doesn't have a goal-to-go situation that they can't convert and they turn over on downs, this genuinely felt like a game the Cowboys could have scored 60 points yesterday.
No, you're right about that, Bobby. I mean, it was one of those games where everything seemed to work correctly when it came to offensive football, and you're dealing with a rookie quarterback making his first start that was really indecisive. When you study the tape, you're going to see how indecisive DeVito really was. There was a couple of times where Dallas was able to get sacks because, I mean, DeVito misses a pivot route to Robinson. The ball's got to be out. 3-step drop. I mean, how often do you get a sack on a 3-step drop?
Right.
I know it happens, but
in this particular,
it's not a common thing. And they did a great job of covering up what they had to do. They put a lot of pressure. They knew the Giants' offensive line was compromised. There were times throughout the game where the tackle Thomas was out. He was back in. They had to move Hugh, the guard, out to tackle. And Phillips at right tackle just was really no match for anybody that was out there against him. I mean, he struggled with that the whole time. John Michael Smith, the center, had some problems. So great game defensively for the Cowboys in really getting after a rookie quarterback making his first start. Offensively, as you mentioned, everything worked out perfectly for Dallas. There were some really good route combinations that they had. Dak was spot on with what he saw. The only one was the interception where he didn't see Flott out of a zone coverage situation.
Yeah, let's just get that one out of the way. It's going to be very positive. So let's just get the interception out of the way. Yeah. What happened on that play?
Yeah, but they were in zone coverage, and then Flott's man runs inside, so he just settles in a zone. And what happens is they try and run the route behind they try and run the route behind the in-breaking route, and Flott just never moved. If it's man coverage, he's going inside, and there's probably that opening for the ball to be thrown. And unfortunately for Dak, it was just that one pass. I mean, I'm sure he'd love to have it back where it was. I know people are probably going to jump us for talking about on a day where they stomped him offensively that we're here talking about.
We're just getting the one out of the way.
Just getting one play out of the way. That's the only one.
No one ever has to question if I'm a fan of Dak Prescott. You guys know that. So I'll say this. Those are the interceptions that we've talked about before. Those are the ones that that Dak most frequently are his fault. Right. And he would probably tell you he gets focused in, he gets lasered in, and it's just he gets tunnel vision and he doesn't see the squatting defender. That's what's burned him in Green Bay, Washington over the years. Those are the picks that are his fault typically. But other than that, sterling performance.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, if you look at the balls that were thrown throughout the day, the prayer ball, the Tolo ball that he threw to
the YOLO ball, not the Tolo ball.
The Dolo, what's it? YOLO ball, right?
YOLO, yeah.
I'm so used to the Tolo ball, which 105.3 The Fan is what we're familiar with all the time. But the YOLO ball that he threw, really like it was a funny pass because Steele, and by the way, Steele had a much better game pass protecting Thibodeau several times. Thibodeau has had some games. He's got 8.5 sacks. This guy's not a slappy when it comes to rushing the passer.
Yep.
And both tackles did a really nice job of handling that. Inside, man, having to deal with Lawrence was not easy. Those guards and center, that was an all-day affair dealing with that. But the ball, the YOLO ball that he threw down, it's funny because Steele takes his man and Ojulari and pins Ojulari wide. So there's a little bit of a gap there. And Dak takes a step up like he's going to run because he's like, I'm just going to get what I can out of this.
Yep.
And then for some reason, something touches him. I mean, touches him in a way of like, wait a minute, I'm about to make a play here. So he steps up and then steps back. And now Steele's kind of like, whoa, bro, what are you doing here? And he kind of still kind of got Ojulari taken care of. But there's pressure, and Dak really off his back foot just heaves it. I mean,
and he said in the post game, he's like, I'll be honest, you guys. He's like, I was trying to throw it away.
Yeah.
He's like, CeeDee's just that good.
Well, the way CeeDee had Holmes beat on the route, I mean, up the field, he really had him beat, and then Holmes never saw the ball, and he comes back to the ball as it's kind of floating down the field, and you're like going, oh, okay, I see. Either Dak, I could say it was one of those brilliant plays, or it was one of those like Dak admitted that he was trying to throw it away. But great job by Lamb coming back for the ball. Him, really all the guys, all the receivers did a really fine job yesterday with the routes, really good combinations with how they were able to get guys open. We've seen those deep crossers that have gotten Cooks. Sometimes it gets covered, but other times, Cooks is, wide open on the play. Yesterday, he was wide open. Dak found him a couple of different times. Protection was outstanding. Running game will be an interesting thing, I'm sure, that you and I will get to in a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. Because there were a lot of interesting parts. Let's start with the usage of Pollard and Dowdle really quickly. Dowdle had a really good game. Pollard was not bad when he was carrying the ball. I mean, there were some frustrations early, but he had a couple nice runs in the game where he was, made some guys miss, played with some power. But man, you're seeing right now for all the discussion, and look, I don't mean to dunk on anybody here, but look, when you guys were, not everybody, but when there were people asking us during training camp, like, well, why would they pick Dowdle over Malik Davis? And we kept trying to tell you they love Dowdle. Dowdle has just never been healthy for them. Right. But this is a guy that back in 2020 they had a plan for him to be somebody that they would use. They have always really, really liked him, and you're finally starting to see it's good for him. He's healthy finally. He's able to contribute, and you can see what he can do. He is a bruising runner. He's somebody who plays with some elusiveness. He's got some juice. He's a really good player, and one that the Cowboys are going to be able to use. But we had seen Jerry Jones talked about last Tuesday on 105 through the fan had basically inferred that maybe they get Pollard going a little bit more in the passing game, or maybe they look to use him a little differently. And Brian, I was just looking at the alignment numbers for Pollard. Pollard played 12 snaps at receiver yesterday. That is by far the most that he's played this year. And there were instances of, Pollard out there at receiver and Dowdle as the single back. They did some interesting stuff. It's funny. I think we talked about it on Friday. We said, well, hey, look, if you want to try and do some different things for Cooks, do you line him up in the backfield? There were a couple times where he didn't take the snap in the backfield, but he'd be lined up and motion out. They had some, they had the, what was the full house with him one point, and he got motioned out. And so they did some different things with him yesterday, but some interesting stuff going on in the running game. Overall, just your takeaways on Pollard versus Dowdle in this game.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about Pollard. Dowdle and his ability to run with power. That's something that's very, very clear. There was an issue yesterday with Pollard, and I think the issue with him is that there are times where he's run against some heavy box and they just can't get the guy. They cannot get the extra guy. Whether it's that linebacker or safety, somebody that comes down there and it's the eighth guy, and all of a sudden now they have to deal with that. They can't account for the last guy, and Pollard is not able to make the last guy miss, or the eighth guy miss, or the heavy box guy miss. Yeah. And there were several times they had a hard time dealing with Dexter Lawrence yesterday. And I give Broaddus a lot of credit for fighting as hard as he did. Zach Martin got knocked around a little bit yesterday by Dexter Lawrence. It's just hard inside with him to have to deal with a guy that just pushes you and bullies you. But there were several times, and I know that our listeners, they're into it. They watch tape. They try and learn things. When you do sit down and see, even if you replay and watch the game on the Game Pass stuff or whatever on TV, the condensed version stuff, you're going to see that there were a lot of times where Pollard just really didn't have anywhere to go. Yeah. It was I always tell this story about tough sledding when we talk about scouting these backs. It's tough sledding out there. Well, it was some tough sledding yesterday for Pollard. And I think there's some things about Pollard that we're starting to learn. I mean, get him. We always talk about to and through the hole. Yesterday, they got him only a couple of times where he was able to make a cut behind.
Yeah.
I mean, he read it quick and then was able to make that cut behind Broaddus to get some yards, to get forward on some, to get some forward progress. Other than that, there's some people that were kind of talking about that maybe Tony Pollard needs to be a little bit more patient, running. But
Pollard said that after the bye week.
He
mentioned
might
that after the bye.
He might be feeling like that if I don't get to and through the hole, I'm not going to get to through the hole. Maybe he's trying to read things a little bit faster than he needs to be. But they had a play, Bobby, and we've seen this before. And Schoonmaker, my guy, he gets stalemated at the point of attack. They're trying to pull Broaddus to the right. He gets knocked down. And then what happens is you got Tyron Smith trailing behind him that's going to try and get up on the second level. Well, what happens is you get Schoonmaker gets stalemated, you get Broaddus that gets knocked down, and now Tyron Smith's got nowhere to go. And now the play is already, everything is all kind of effed up, pardon my expression, behind all the blocks.
Yeah.
And so now Pollard's got nowhere to go. So there, it's not just an excuse. I'm not trying to make excuses for Pollard, but man, it's a little bit like Brandon Cooks. When it goes, it looks really pretty. When it doesn't go, it's usually not their fault. It's generally they can't get somebody taken care of. And you'll see it. You'll go back. Everybody will go back and watch. I specifically this morning went back early this morning and watched all Pollard's runs. And it's a common thread throughout. When it's open, he could see it. He gets through it. When it's just he's trying to get there, it gets closed. And there's a lot of things going on, a lot of clutter, a lot of muddy runs for him at that point of attack.
You mentioned it's a lot like Brandon Cooks there. Brandon Cooks, of course, yesterday was the star performer outside of Dak Prescott and CeeDee. I mean, a lot of star performers yesterday, but that's the guy who it was most critical to see him getting going. So before we dive into that, I want to remind you guys, this is the Love the Star podcast. You can find the Love the Star podcast on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. Brian, as much as Mike McCarthy seemed to say, he had the line of, I don't play fantasy football. And, we play to the discipline of the quarterback.
His fantasy team played pretty well yesterday.
You know what? I don't think you were playing to the discipline of the quarterback on snap one. On snap one, you were saying we're getting Brandon Cooks the ball. And it was a 4-yard quick strike, but there was a concerted effort to get him the ball yesterday, Brian. It reminded me a little bit of you remember last year against Chicago when there was a lot of chatter starting to build about what's wrong with Gallup. Why is Gallup not back? And they came out, they threw him the ball 3 times on the opening drive, and they made it a point of get him the ball, build his confidence. Same sort of thing is what it felt like in this game with Brandon Cooks. He had 165 yards receiving heading into yesterday, Brian. He had 173 in the game. So 8 more yards in this game than he had through 8 games before that. He was fantastic. This is, in all reality, we talked about it. This is an awful Giants team, an awful Giants defense. I'll be honest, Brian, I was chatting with some people and I was saying this, one of the 5 worst teams I can remember watching in recent memory. Like they're bad. They just, it's really fallen apart for them. And I understand they've had some injuries and some other different things, but man, that's good. That's going to be, that team is not close in their rebuild. They've got a lot of things that they need to fix. But Brandon Cooks takes advantage of it. CeeDee Lamb takes advantage of it. Dak Prescott takes advantage of it. Everybody was good yesterday. Like you said, the receivers were good yesterday. Gallup, Cooks, Lamb, Jalen Brooks looked pretty good out there.
Couple nice little routes. Yeah.
Getting open. Brooks was a guy who, impressed us in training camp. He was always this guy who made tough catches and made plays. And he did that yesterday in the little bit of run he got really in the second half. But Brian, what stood out to you when you looked at the tape in terms of what they did with Cooks? Did they do anything different other than just say, we're getting him the ball? Was it just the attention to getting him the football? Or do you think they did some different things? Or is this just a function of you were playing the Giants? The Giants are really bad.
Yeah, I think it's a function of how they ran their offense yesterday, Bob. And you're absolutely right. There was some initial Let's get Cooks the ball. But, we haven't, please help me here, Bobby, because my memory about to be a 60-year-old man. When have we seen a vertical route to Cooks? When have we just seen a straight slot run vertical route that they completed yesterday?
I don't remember. We talked about that in the pregame show too.
Yeah, we haven't seen one.
Just do it.
Yeah,
send him on it.
Yeah, they're just send him. I guess that's a soccer term, right? Just send him. Just send it. Let's go. And we saw that. The deep crossers were there for him. The separation was there. The stuff that he ran, the out stuff that he did was there. He had one of those days where every route that he was able to execute against that secondary was gold for him. And I like I say, I've been waiting all year to see him just run a vertical route, and we got one. I mean, we got one that he made a huge play on. We got a deep over that's kind of his route that he runs to just finally got him the ball. So I think Brandon Cooks has been that guy. I just think yesterday the offense lent itself to getting everybody the ball. I mean, we go a whole half without Michael Gallup getting a ball. And then all of a sudden, what does he do? He makes a touchdown catch.
Yeah, his two catches yesterday, the touchdown catch and then the going up for it, high pointing it with Cooper Rush. Those were two good plays you want to see from him.
Absolutely.
What is when you look at the offense the last 4 weeks, which is when the passing game has really taken off here, do you see time on task and reps and that's the difference? Or do you see, no, they're working concepts in that just were not in there the first 5 weeks of the season?
Man, it seems like to me my quarterback's eyes are really downfield now. Remember there was a time where Richardson, the quarterback with the Colts.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson.
He and Dak had the lowest completion percentage or route air yards. Remember, it was awful. It was like Dak was at 5.3 or some ridiculous number like that. And you're like going, man, this doesn't seem to be very conducive to how Dak Prescott needs to play football. Now I get it. They don't want him to turn the ball over. Okay, well, you know what? I don't want him to keep throwing the ball 5 yards every damn time either, too. Yeah. As a fan, you're like, well, stop it. I mean, so, we're seeing, I tell you what, Bob, we're seeing far less slants. Remember how early in the year it seemed like
slant flat.
Yeah, just everything, every combination. Now you watch them play and there's 3-man routes. There's 3-man combinations. There's one guy driving inside. There's I'm trying to think of on the touchdown. Let me go back. I have my notes. I'll pull my notes up from this thing. But there was a time where when they ran one of the touchdowns, they had here it is. There was there was on the goal line. This is what some of the routes that they had. They ran the goal line pass to Lamb. They try and run a double pick inside for Lamb into the flat. You get Cooks, Tolbert, those guys. Okay, so here you're trying to pick. They run another goal line pass, a combo route with Pollard in the flat, Cooks on the curl, and then Ferguson to the corner. Dak just kind of overthrows the ball there. So, I mean, they're trying to find ways to run these routes in order to get their receivers open. It's just not the flat. It's just not slants. Yeah. We've seen so many, so many things. I'm going back in my notes on the Cooks touchdown. I said, nice read by Prescott, understanding the matchup. Cooks runs a corner on Tolbert runs a pivot, but is covered. Ferguson runs a stutter release where he goes up and he fakes inside. It's kind of that old Jason Witten route. Remember where Witten used to nod inside and then everybody's thinking he's going inside.
Yeah, a little Y option.
Yeah, but it's up the field. So he's going to nod inside and stutter a little bit, but that thing gets covered. And see, here they are. The Giants are going to have a 2-man rush. They're going to drop 9. But where does Prescott go to the ball? He goes to the open guy. Cooks gets in the corner on flat, and he understands that, and boom, that's where the ball goes. That's what we're starting to see from the Cowboys now. That's what we're seeing combinations of routes, but the routes are carrying them down the field, and CeeDee Lamb had a wheel route I'm reading about here. I remember from the notes. Flott and Banks have mixed up in coverage. Bank thinks Flott has Lamb as he motions out, but inside Banks and Flott double Cooks, leaving Lamb wide open along the sideline. That was the one where Dak Prescott kind of pointed to Lamb to keep running.
Yeah.
If the ball's out in front, it's a touchdown. That's a 30-yard gain right there, But there's your combination again. There's your combination of when you got a wheel and then you've got both defenders jump Cooks on his route, leaving Lamb wide open. We're starting to see far more of that, which is resulting in some really massive plays for the Cowboys.
Yeah, and look, during the Kellen Moore years, Dak Prescott became really comfortable throwing the deep crossers. That became something that he was a big fan of working. That was something that he would hit CeeDee Lamb on frequently. That was a big gainer for them. And we're starting to see more of those. I don't think it's just some people are probably wondering, okay, are they throwing these now or is it they're running these now? And I think what you are seeing is it's become something that's it's in the game plan. There was a lot of regimented stuff the first 5 weeks of the season where it was just boom, boom, you're on your back foot throw. Like it was very timed out that way. And they still have that in there. It's definitely in the offense. I think was it the first one he hit to CD? He hit CD on a slant early in the game, and that was threaded the needle. That was classic.
Yeah, they ran.
Boom.
Yeah, Ferguson went on an out, so all of a sudden they were trying to kind of pick something, but Ferguson went on the out, and then Lamb went inside the as Ferguson crossed. Lamb is inside, and there's the ball right there. So
and that's
there's your slant flat.
That's the classic. The classic. Boom, boom.
Yeah.
You hit that drop, and then you throw the ball, and then that's the way it's supposed to work. The way you saw it there was because the footwork and the timing and everything allowed you to just thread the needle. That's what the West Coast offense is supposed to look like. That's a great example of it. That play right there.
Yeah.
Go
ahead, Bob. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's what it's supposed to look like there. But so those concepts are still in there. It's just, it's not the only thing they're doing. I think this is just my conspiracy theory, Brian, is that after the San Francisco game, when we've heard Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb
lose his mind,
they kind of aired things out. I don't think in a negative way either. Like he was frustrated, no doubt, but I think they aired things out and said, hey, let's figure some things out here. And I think that what you're seeing right now is in all likelihood, some player input is being more heavily weighted and included in some of these passing concepts.
Well, maybe too, you get, maybe Brian Schottenheimer studying some other people's tape too, or coming up with some ideas as well, because it looks like a completely different offense throwing the football. If I could circle back, Bobby, again, because I have my notes in front of me, the Cooks go route. Cooks is lined up on the slot against Holmes again. No safety help in the middle of the field. It's just one-on-one. Cooks wins off the line, is able to gain separation. Pollard did a great job of crossing the pocket to pick up McFadden on the blitz.
Yep.
And that gives Prescott the opportunity to lay the ball out for Cooks. That's a 34-yard gain. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that one to Cooks. And we mentioned it early. We haven't seen that use your speed, win one-on-one, no safety help in the middle of the field. That's your quarterback and your play caller being in their bag right there. Like Dak sees that. He sees the safety is cheated to his left. Okay, there's an opportunity to throw the ball up the right hash. He's got the guy that can do it because he knows the guy can win one-on-one. That's the kind of stuff that I think that we've seen from Cooks, but they just haven't been able to get to it like they did yesterday.
Which it's funny when they were running that route where we're up in the press box, we're kind of cornered, angled. So they were on the far side of the field. They were on the other end of the field at like the 10 or something like that. And Brian, when I saw that route when I saw the ball get thrown on him running that, I was like, oh, this is about to be a 90-yard touchdown. Yeah, I was certain Cooks was going to catch that and was going to be. That was a beautiful throw. Caught it, great. But I mean, I think he was just a little step away from if he doesn't.
Well, Holmes did a good job of tackling him.
Holmes, right? That's on Holmes. That's not nobody on Dallas.
That's one-on-one. That was a good play by Holmes.
When the ball was released, I was like, oh, this is going to be 6 here. So they've had a lot of success. Now, I think you are seeing they're working. Not necessarily the middle, not between the hashes, but they're working between the numbers more, especially down the field. Between the hashes, they're not throwing a ton. But I mean, that's still a little bit more of a narrow part of the field anyway.
Right.
But between the numbers, they are throwing the ball more. If you look at the first couple weeks of the season, anything that was between the numbers was inside of 10 yards.
Right.
Any sort of shots they wanted to take, push the ball downfield at all, was always outside the numbers. Now what you're seeing is that they're willing to play within that middle third of the field. And I think that for all the things that, Dak Prescott, they're trying to avoid in terms of turnovers, interceptions, things like that. I think that that's where you have to live with the good and the bad, because there's too much good for Dak in between the numbers to just cut it out.
Oh no, there's no question about that. I mean, I think you totally nailed it. I was reading again. One of the Cooks had a crossing route we were talking about earlier for 25 yards. Cooks right to left, goes behind 2 clear out routes by Gallup and Lamb. There you go. Here we are. They're worried now about Lamb because he's torching him. Gallup is working hard to try and get open at this point. McLeod's playing man coverage. He can't stay with Cooks across the field, and Prescott rolls to his left. He squares his shoulders and hits hits Cooks on the move. 25-yard gain. That's the kind of that's what this team is capable of doing a lot. And I think this is what we've seen. I keep saying this, and I apologize to everybody out there listening, but we've seen Cooks with the crossing routes before. They just haven't got him the ball like this. They haven't, and he's been running routes like this. It's just yesterday was a great day for him with working against this Giants secondary, and Dak was able to kind of, get him involved with the offense.
CeeDee Lamb, of course, had another great day. He is the first receiver in NFL history with 3 straight games of 10 catches and at least 150 yards receiving. He's playing really well. Brian, before we get to our mailbag here, how many receivers right now, if you're building a team, do you take over CeeDee Lamb?
Just right now?
Yeah.
I love my LSU kids, right?
Yeah.
But my LSU kids aren't healthy right now. I think you would be hard pressed the last 4 games not to have CeeDee Lamb as one of the guys. I mean, it doesn't matter with him, man, zone. It doesn't matter. He is. I mean, he made like a 9-yard catch where he was almost like a soccer goalie. Sometimes like he curled back to the inside. Well, actually, he was curled to the outside. Well, that'd be curling. He curled in and then had to adjust out to make the ball. But he was like, instead of like trying to cradle it, he caught the ball with both hands up on top, and it was like he went to his left, caught the ball. I was like, okay, man, this guy is, I mean, he's catching the ball 6 inches off the ground, strong hand in the ball, 6 inches off the ground, laying out like a soccer goalie making a save. This guy, it doesn't matter. Hit him on the move, hit him 6 inches off the ground. He's playing some really special football for you right now.
You're listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Odyssey podcast. You can find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Brian, it is now time for our Dean Julia Love of the Star mailbag. And first question right out of the gate is going to kind of be an offshoot of some of the stuff we were just talking about. Question from Brandon. How much credit should we give Mike McCarthy for riding with Prescott's arm, leading this offense rather than running the ball? It seems like a change of philosophy happened at the bye week. So, Brian, obviously, we don't have all the details as to where these changes come from, everything else. I mean, you have to give, at the very least, you would have to give credit to McCarthy for potentially accepting feedback and implementing that. My only question here that I'm not sure of is, I don't know that Mike McCarthy makes these changes just on his own. You know what I mean? And so because of that, I don't know. It's tough for me to say how much should we give him, because I think that
I'll give him some credit because I'm usually throwing dirt on Mike McCarthy. I'll give him some credit for listening. How about that?
Sure.
I'll give him credit for if in fact CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott and Mike Solari and Brian Schottenheimer and all those guys during the players aren't around during the bye. The players are gone. It's somebody had to determine when they did their self scout, and maybe they always talk about the things that they do what they call across the hall.
Yep.
Maybe where coaches, maybe Dan Quinn, across the hall says, man, I could defend you guys pretty easily because this is what you do. and all of a sudden Mike McCarthy goes, really? He goes, yeah, all I have to do is do this. They've clearly opened this offense up. They clearly have opened it up. And the beneficiary of it has been your quarterback, because I feel like he plays better when it's opened up.
Mm-hmm.
1,000 times. I'll give you $1 for every time I've said it. You'd be able to retire now. Muddy, bloody Dak.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he is. When he gets a feel for the game being opened up, he plays well. Now, there's some times in some playoff games and some big games where things have kind of gone a little sideways, and those are the times you go, damn, Dak, but yesterday, I mean, only had one moment where I was damn Dak one time that whole game. In the last 4 games, there hasn't been much damn Dak. I mean, he's been the reason why. Like I say, yeah, you moved the ball against the Giants, but damn, you moved the ball against the Eagles last week too. And a lot of it has to do with the play caller. I think is doing a much better job of understanding what he needs to do for his quarterback.
Next question here from KMS22. I saw Mazi Smith make back-to-back plays early in the game yesterday. Has he been progressing on tape / thoughts on his profession from people in the building? This is Mazi Smith yesterday, I thought, played one of his better games. And Brian, I know you got a chance to watch the tape this morning. How did you feel about him?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Mazi, there was one time, and the biggest problem that Mazi Smith has is when he's laid off the ball. But there was one time where he was so laid off the ball that he made a tackle. That it happened. It was Saquon Barkley tries to run to his right, and Osa's off the ball quick, and they're kind of up the field, and Mazi is so late that it's almost like the delay helped him get in position when Barkley came from the right side to the left side where Mazi was.
Yeah.
But the biggest, that's Mazi's biggest issue. When Mazi doesn't get off the ball, and there were a couple of times where the Giants, when they scored their touchdown, or their first touchdown, where they were running the ball, they were having some success. Mazi got knocked around a little bit there. Mazi wasn't as square. Mazi base wasn't as good. But overall, though, the numbers are not going to say that Mazi Smith has been great. And people will say, oh, well, he's a bust and all that. I'm just telling you guys, when Mazi Smith gets the idea down that he has to come off the ball hard every single snap, and he can't take any plays off, and even when he didn't want to take a play off, he could be a little late. But when he plays off with everybody else, when he gets off the ball on the snap count, sees it, Mazi Smith's a pretty good player. But Mazi Smith is not a good player when he plays late.
Yeah, which is something
and that's been a problem.
I don't know about you, Brian. I'd have to look back at this and see, but I'm trying to remember. That used to be an issue, I remember, for Taco Charlton. I remember that as impressive.
It's a Michigan. It's a Michigan thing. They play. It's a two gap stuff.
Well, as impressive as Rashawn Gary was as an athlete, and he's been a good player. I remember Gary at times had some
off the ball.
Was laid off the ball at Michigan. Yeah. Is that just a Michigan thing that you have to break when they get here?
I think it has something to do with the scheme that Michigan plays.
And guys just get into those habits.
You get in, and what happens is when you get, you're 4 plays into a drive and now you're a little tired, and what happens, you revert back to some of your old bad habits, and whereas you're like, okay, got to play a technique, got to get off the ball, can't be tired, got to get going here, got to go, oh, I'm tired, I'm off the ball, I'm getting blocked. Oh no. And then they take him out and you're like, damn, Mazi had 3 really good plays and then 1 bad play where you decided that you just didn't want to come off the ball. Yeah. And I'm not trying to hold water for the Cowboys and the Scouts and all that, because I want Mazi Smith to play well, because he played well at Michigan. And there are times where you see him play well for the Dallas Cowboys.
Sure.
His biggest issue is getting off the football. And if you ask anybody over there, they will tell you that's the problem. And when he gets off the football, he's a good football player. When he doesn't, he's like me trying to defend the run. He's getting blocked and it's not very good.
We had a couple questions here, Brian. Garrett, Joe, I think we had another one in here too. People basically wanting to know, is it time to have a tough conversation about Jordan Lewis here? And is he?
Man,
Look, he's a
But you have no choice.
You don't.
You
And
really
like, I mean,
don't.
they never intended for him to play as much as he's playing right
No,
now. And look,
absolutely not.
I will forever have a lot of respect for the competitor that Jordan Lewis is.
Yeah.
By
the way, he's okay. I got a report last night. Remember, he came off the field. They were dealing with shoulder and potential concussion thing. Late report last night about 11 o'clock. Somebody got a hold of me and told me that he's fine, was the word fine. So we'll see if in fact that's true today, which I think will probably be. I was kind of worried about what they were going to do in the nickel in the post game last night.
Jordan Lewis to me is a big culture guy that you need here. He's been a good player for you over the years. He's never been a great player, but man, pound for pound, one of the toughest guys on the football team. He's does not shy away from tackling, making plays in the run game. He's been a good cover guy for you at times in his career. The reality is he is an aging player who's starting to have some injuries. He's coming off of a serious injury last year. And that's just kind of, where they're at right now. I still, it is something where, if Nashawn Wright would have been healthy during this time, and if he would have taken, stepped up more like they expected, or if Kelvin Joseph hits, Jordan Lewis probably isn't here. He probably is a cap casualty at the end of camp or whatever else. But the reality is they need him, and he goes out there and he competes. It's just not always going to be pretty, and he's battling his ass off. And like I said, I'll always have a lot of respect for him, because in 2018, when Chris Richard got here, and they basically told him, like, you're just not going to be able to play here.
You're too small.
You're too small.
Yeah.
You're just not going to be able to make it here. You remember they were doing things like trying to put him on offense for jet sweeps and stuff.
Look who, he got the last laugh. He's still here, and they're all gone.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he's lasted 6 more years here, and so I have a lot of respect for Jordan Lewis, but that's just probably the reality of where he is. Last question here for you, Brian, and it's one that a lot of different people asked here. The Pollard versus Dowdle workload. People are wanting to know, do you think we're heading for a sort of 50-50 split?
I think so. Now, Pollard, if they don't block plays cleanly, Pollard struggles. He had that ability at one time to make people miss, and he just hadn't been able to do that, but they really haven't helped him. I talked about it earlier, Bobby. Tight end gets compressed. Pullers get picked off one-on-one. They get picked off, and now Pollard's got nowhere to go. And it's not like that all the time. I mean, he made a couple of cuts behind some really good blocking up front and was able to make some positive yards. There's something about, you saw in that little flip play that Dowdle had for 21 yards, that he made Ward miss. And I think Dallas blew the blocking scheme on that one. I think Tyron Smith was supposed to get Ward, and he didn't, or they were flipping it off him, because everybody else was moving to their left. Tyron Smith was moving to his right, and then he runs into Broaddus, and Broaddus kind of bumps him up to the second level kind of thing. So they had a little bit, maybe Tyron Smith not practicing right there was kind of one of those problems you had, or he heard the play wrong in his head. But you see it with Dowdle, the ability to take it, to explode, to be physical, to finish. I think, Pollard's doing the best he can, and Pollard's done a damn good job as a pass protector. I mean, I never thought I would say those words, but that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, I think I think it's
his awareness.
He's adequate. He's not adequate. He's good in pass.
He's good. His awareness and vision has helped them save some plays this year. But I think we're going to start seeing if teams are going to, Dallas can maybe get teams to not play heavy box against them, though, too, by the way they're throwing the ball.
Do you think any of it, though, by the way, do you think any of the workload being the way that it was, I mean, maybe we're heading that way, but do you think any of it had to do with Turpin wasn't in, so they were subbing Pollard in for Turpin as a receiver?
Yeah.
And so if Turpin's back, does it maybe not look as even on the carries?
Yeah, I think so. By the way, Bobby, speaking of Turpin not being in, I was worried about the return game yesterday. For as many times I thought the Giants was going to punt, I don't think Deuce Vaughn is very comfortable returning punts.
Yeah, I think it's just coming up and catching the punts.
Yeah, I don't think it looks.
He does the best he can. I don't think
he's
afraid of the contact. I don't think he's afraid of getting.
If you could hand him the ball and then let him run, he would be far better at that.
Yeah, he had a nice little. He caught a pass and fought for like 5 extra yards yesterday. So
that's what he does.
All right. Well, Cowboys win this one 49-17. We got the Panthers coming up this week. It'll be interesting to turn on that tape and see how much better they are than the Giants. But we'll have a couple more episodes for you guys later this week. For Brian Broaddus, I'm Bobby Belt. We will talk to you guys again later.